Matt, good afternoon. Thanks so much for making the time with us today.
Yeah, no problem. How you doing, guys?
Doing well. Matt, were you surprised at how much that has been revealed today?
I wouldn't say I'm surprised. The law enforcement's been doing their investigation for some time now, and usually these things kind of leak out periodically as the investigation goes on. This one was a little unique where it all came out at once, but it doesn't surprise me in light of the past week of evidence being gathered that everything came out today.
Matt Sorokin joining us on the WadeFord.com hotline here on Game Time, Sports Radio 92.9 The Game. What I've wondered throughout this whole process, when his attorney was spending time with Aaron at his house in North Attleboro, Matt, was what does his attorney know? Does the attorney know? Is Aaron confessing to him the story? How much does his attorney know here?
Well, doing criminal defense, this is one of the struggles you always run into with your clients, which is there's really two things. There's the questions that you ask as the attorney, but then there's also how forthcoming your client is with you. It's really a mystery, A, what Aaron actually did, and then B, what he's admitting to his attorney at this point. And it's not unusual that when you take a case on, in the first instance, you hear one story and it changes throughout the time the case goes on. So it's really hard to say what their discussions have been like. It's easy to predict what his attorney is telling him.
Matt, some of the allegations, such as that Odin Lloyd was shot as he tried to exit the car and then was shot again, some of the descriptions of what went on that were read today inside that courtroom seem like, and this may be a leap, and help me here with this for our listeners, that maybe the other two people that were in that car are cooperating. It feels like there's very intimate knowledge that was shared today in that courtroom that could only be shared by somebody who was in that car, had privy to what happened that night.
I don't think you can necessarily draw that conclusion from that. I mean, those things could probably be determined from ballistics experts or people, having an idea of where the bullets entered and exited the body, or maybe where shell casings were found. I think what's most significant to me is that Mr. Hernandez's lawyer has said that the case is weak and circumstantial. And those are not descriptions that you usually use as a defense attorney if there are confessions in the file or statements from eyewitnesses.
Matt, if you was the attorney of Aaron Hernandez, would you have liked for Aaron to have the officers come to his home and arrest him as they did, or have the option to turn himself in? Because now looking at this on our television here in the studio, people are automatically accusing him or saying basically that he's guilty. So if you was the attorney, how would you have gone about the process?
Yeah, I mean, I think you want to have as much control over the process as possible. And if he has the option to turn himself in at his convenience rather than being effectively pulled out of his home he hasn't exactly cooperated with the investigation as far as giving statements, but he hasn't been uncooperative in that he didn't leave the state. He stayed at his home. I would have preferred for him to have turned himself in at his own convenience so that there wasn't basically a media circus around it, snapping pictures of him, with his hands hidden underneath his T-shirt.
Is the evidence against Aaron Hernandez as damning as it seems, Matt?
Not necessarily. I mean, it's the prosecutor's job to make him look guilty at this point, and you're only hearing the prosecutor's version of the facts. So, there's two sides to every story, and, we have constitutional rights of, proof beyond a reasonable doubt and innocent until proven guilty, and there could be many holes or problems with the state's evidence. And since we're only hearing one side of it at this point, I think it's very premature to jump to any conclusions.
Matt, we've seen a few times in this National Football League where guys have been taken to jail and seem like they've been guilty and not had any opportunities to be able to receive bail. With this happening, do you see this as being something very, very bad for Aaron Hernandez moving forward with an opportunity to play in the National Football League again?
Well, I think, any team is going to think twice before, even if he's found not guilty, before signing him. I mean, I think we saw, Michael Vick suffered similar problems and, although he ultimately played again, his stock dropped, so to speak. And I think, with a charge as serious as murder, and then also in light of the other allegations that are following Hernandez around with civil lawsuits alleging similar conduct, Regardless of how good he is and how valuable he is, I think any coach or any organization is, going to think twice before taking on what could be a headache for them.
Obviously, when you are trying a case, things that happen in your past may not be admissible in that trial or in that case. But there's the issue with the former acquaintance, which has the suit out that says he shot him in the face, and now he's lost one eye. There's now another report that said that one of the gun found at the house was used in a previous incident. How much of an impact will his history have on him in this trial or in these charges?
Well, there's really, in my opinion, there's going to be two trials going on here. One, there's going to be the actual legal trial, and then there's going to be the trial of public opinion.
True.
As far as public opinion goes, it's going to be horrible for him. That's where he's going to be guilty before he even gets a chance to speak. When the kind of phrase where there's smoke, there's fire, I think that's what people are going to see in these circumstances. As far as in the criminal trial, a lot of that, his defense attorney should be objecting to, and the objections should be sustained, with regard to unrelated conduct and past incidents and so forth. And then there's always the question of, can you get an unbiased jury that hasn't heard of these things? Can the jury remain sequestered and stay out of media reports? And, you hope to have a fair trial, but it's going to be difficult. It's front page news everywhere. So, it's going to be a real challenge for the defense attorney to keep the trial clean, so to speak.
Matt Sorokin joining us on the WadeFord.com hotline on Game Time here on Sports Radio 92.9 The Game. When you hear that Aaron Hernandez was uncooperative with authorities, I've heard Roger Cossack say, Matt, that the authorities checking his home 3 different times was an attempt to ratchet up pressure on Aaron. Can you describe for us, can you take us inside that scene, inside Aaron Hernandez's home, and just paint a picture for what that's like, him not cooperating with police? Are they asking him questions and he's ignoring the officers? What does that look like?
Well, I think not cooperating with an investigation is something that many people might not have a handle on, which is that you have no obligation to cooperate to answer questions. In the alternative, you actually affirmatively have a Fifth Amendment right to remain silent. So you have a constitutional right not to cooperate. Now, that doesn't mean you can destroy evidence or refuse to give your name or date of birth or those kinds of things. But you actually have a constitutional right not to answer questions, not to let them in without a warrant. So the fact that he's looked down upon for exercising that constitutional right is ridiculous, in my opinion. Anybody, when you're being investigated by law enforcement, in most situations, you don't do yourself any favors by saying, sure, come on in, or here, let me answer all your questions. I'm sure he was acting on the advice of his attorney who's been involved from the beginning. And so, it's easy to say those things and draw a negative inference, but in reality, it's a smart thing to do, even in situations where you're innocent, number one. Number two, you've got situations where you have government, law enforcement officials entering your home on 3 separate occasions. I don't think anybody would like that. It's incredibly intrusive. And so, to suggest that he should be laying out milk and cookies for these guys and, tell them to kick their feet up, it's just not how anybody would really react to it. But, at the same time, I can understand that it's easy in a court of public opinion to draw that negative inference.
Matt Sorokin joining us. What's next here now, Matt? What's a timetable for the trial? And obviously no bail set for Aaron Hernandez. What's a timetable for a resolution on all of this?
Well, it's hard for me to say. I do practice in Hartford, and I've got a satellite office with my brother who practices down in D.C., but the procedure varies state to state. So I can't speak so much to the procedure in Massachusetts. However, I'd be surprised if there was a quick resolution. Right now, the warrant, the defense attorney is probably going to take a look at the warrant for, the first time today would be my guess. And that's really going to contain what the substance of the state's evidence is. And then it's a lengthy process going through that evidence, determining what the problems are with it, discussing that with the prosecutor, potentially hiring experts or doing your own investigation, determining there may be a slew of legal issues. It sounded like some of the searches may have been illegal, may have been conducted without a warrant, so there may be suppression issues on some of the evidence. And these are things that are going to have to get hashed out over a series of months, if not, over a year. Usually trials don't happen quickly, and you want to come to some resolution short of a trial. And that's what they'll be working towards. And if they can't my guess is in the next,